What's the definition of a side punch, side block, side strike, and a side thrust in Taekwondo? Stay tuned and I'll explain. The rules for defining side block, side punches, side strikes and side thrusts are all slightly different, so I'll explain each one separately. With side blocks, the body must be side facing or half facing the target at the moment of impact. Now this can be performed with any stance using any blocking tool. Here are some examples. Outer forearm high side block, and these examples show the side facing version and half facing version. Knife hand high side block, and reverse knife hand middle side block. Make sure that the blocking tool ends up in line with the center of the shoulder at the moment of impact. The definition of side strikes is very similar to that of side blocks. The body must be side facing or half facing the target at the moment of impact. This can be performed with any stance, and the attacking tools are usually the knife hand or the back fist, but also backhand and side fist can also be used. Here are some examples. Knife hand side strike. This is shown side facing and also half facing. And back fist side strike. And as with blocking tools, make sure that the attacking tool lines up with the center of the shoulder at the moment of impact. The definition of a side punch is different to that of a side block or a side strike. A side punch is when your body is side facing the target at the moment of impact. So you're punching to the flank, but not half facing. So for example, the third movement in Wonyotul, you're performing a fixed stance punch. So your body's half facing. Now I've heard many people call this a side punch, but it's not. I double checked with General Choi Hee at a seminar many years ago, and he confirmed that that was not a side punch. So this is consistent with what he wrote in the Taekwondo Encyclopedia. A side punch can be performed in any stance which allows you to punch to the flank. For example, close stance, parallel stance, sitting stance and X stance, and sometimes also diagonal stance and one leg stance. And as with blocking tools, the attacking tool must line up with the center of your shoulder at the moment of impact. The rules for defining a side thrust is very similar to that of a side punch, in that the body must be side facing the target at the moment of impact. But there is one exception with side elbow thrust where the body is half facing. I'll explain that later. The main tools for side thrust are fingertip, double finger and forefinger. And the side thrust is performed mainly in sitting stance and in X stance, but also occasionally in close stance, parallel stance and one leg stance. The elbow can also be used for side thrusts. For example, twin side elbow thrust. This is usually done in small stances such as close stance, parallel stance or X stance. And there is side elbow thrust. This is usually done in L stance or rear foot stance, and it's often done with a sliding motion. Also notice that we called it a side elbow thrust as opposed to an elbow side thrust. Now I don't want to go into detail about how we order the words in naming our techniques in Taekwondo, but I'll leave that for another video. Well, I hope you found the information in this video helpful to you. Just one more thing. That forefinger thrust that I mentioned earlier, here's a target you can use it for.